focus for these two sessions, one was to help you locate yourself on the Enneagram, because we wanted to see what that ego thought system was that broke away from the divine self, how that came about. And that's where I was last time. Today is going to focus on very down-to-earth practices for each Ennea type, so that you can begin to put in place some pretty ordinary practices, not sitting on a cushion and meditating practices, but some very helpful practices to convert that ego thought system that's been running you to the holy thought system of the divine self. Excuse me, my cat just jumped on something. So when I go through the process today, which with each type, you're not going to like your process, because the ego doesn't like it. So you're going to have a little discipline to follow the spiritual practices that are specific to your type. And that just means that you're going to have to burn through that first resistance. Gabriella, you've already done this a lot. So, and you know what that's like. But you stayed with it. So I'm going to go through each type now, and it is a lot to share. If anybody wants me to stop and break or has a question, first I'm going to start with your questions, if you have any question at first, and then we're going to go through the 9 types, and we're going to have very clear direction on the practice that will break that thought system up. So let me see if there's any question before we jump on this train. Okay, Marcy, did you raise your hand? Okay. We're going to start with the body center. The body-centered people are the 8, 9, and 1. They're at the top of that. They're the 3 let's see. Here's the 8, the 9, and the 1. So that's the body center. Now, what do I mean by a body center? There are 3 centers. There's the body center. There's the heart center people. Those are the 2, 3, 4. And there are the head center folks, the 5, 6, 7s. So we're going to go 8, 9, 1 to begin with. The body center type, the 8, 9, and 1, they're in their bodies. The other types aren't. The body center types move from the gut center. So I'll explain, I'll just give you that brief. These types know what it feels like to be in the body. They don't have the magic that the other types have of being outside the body. So they feel more. They're more of a sensing type of being. They feel the pain. They feel their location is really down in the gut. So it makes them a very well, they're in themselves. That's the best way I can say it. So what does that mean about an 8? The 8 is somebody that acts suddenly to take charge, and they don't think. This type does not have a lot of thinking going on. When they see something, and I gave the example last night, the 8 is someone that's going to throw themselves into a dangerous situation to save somebody, to pull them out of a burning truck, or to save a puppy from traffic. They don't think about the danger. They just act. And so that's where we'll begin. And they believe that to be in control is to stay out of danger. And they were abused as children, so they are pretty focused on staying out of danger, out of being hurt again, physically. So they cultivate this strength, and their path is the path of waiting. And you can just put that, if you're interested, that's it, waiting, and not jumping and reacting, but to wait, to stand back for 10 seconds before they throw themselves into a dangerous situation. So they're converting the directing program of taking charge, taking things under control, directing. Okay, let's get things, I'm going to direct. They're the leaders. Let's direct this because there's something going on here, and it's always about an injustice. So instead of jumping into that instinctual role, their practice is to wait. For them, quick action feels safe. So it's going to feel like weakness to not be in action to them. It's going to feel very hard to not take action. So they need to explore waiting as an entry point. And they need to open themselves to the impact of others. Moments of waiting are full of possibility for deepening self-awareness and compassion. The courage to wait is to stand in the unknown, being receptive to what unfolds. It is an act of trust. So here are the practices for the 8, and nobody here is an 8, but I'm still going to read these practices. Just in case Lynn turns out to be an 8, a hidden 8. So practice 1 is to engage with others with questions rather than declarations and opinions. Allow others to speak first in the group. They need to question the certainty that arises within them. What if questions before stating your opinion? They need to notice when they reach out to others who may be sad or hurting. And at that point, to check into themselves and see if they are just projecting their own inner need. The 8 has a very soft inside, even though they look very strong. And they often are projecting onto the puppy that came into the shelter that was abused, or the any underdog they will project onto. So they need to question, is it it's not to stop helping others, because that's a really beautiful part of them, but the question is this something I also need? And contemplation for them is to remember a time when the universe was supportive, when others were supportive, and how that feels. And an ongoing practice is to place their attention 5 feet behind themselves, so that when they do act, they're including themselves in the picture, because they don't include themselves. They don't think, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me when I try and pull this guy out of this truck that's ready to explode? You see, they act before they think. So if they can pull that awareness back behind them, then they have the whole picture. And they need to discharge their energy through physical. There's a suggestion for each type of a Sabbath practice. And for the 8, it's to simply be receptive on the Sabbath to what shows up, and allow others to do for you and gracefully receive. So it's a small step in trusting another to care. And that's very difficult for an 8. Now we go to the 9s. So in this, the 9 is known as the peacemaker. They make wonderful mediators for couples seeking a divorce or whatever, because they are peaceful, and they can bring peace to situations. Their spiritual practice is claiming. CLAIMING. They don't have a sense of a self. They're the one type that really doesn't know who they are. They don't have this strong egoic center. And what they do is they have two activities that they go between. They either merge or they resist. So what does this look like? Oftentimes, if a 9 is in a relationship with someone and they fall in love, they merge with that person. They lose themselves in whatever is important to their partner. And they become the shadow, the partner's shadow, or they resist what's going on. And that's where the passive aggression comes in from the 9. And I used the example last night is, let's say a friend or your partner says, hey, I want to go see Silence of the Lamb tonight. And you go, you're a 9, and you go, inside. But you're used to going along the flow, so you say, okay. But inside, that really isn't what you want to do. And so you may stub your toe on the corner of the bed while you go to get your watch or something, which makes it absolutely impossible for you to go to that movie. That's your passive aggressiveness. That's the unconscious no, I don't want to go there. That's how the resistance shows up. So you say yes, and then you stub your toe. You break your toe or something. So what the practice is for the 9 is to find the space in the middle of the merge and the resistor. So don't merge, because you lose your identity when you merge. And don't resist. I have a son who's a 9, and he resisted every meal I ever cooked. That was the way he found himself, by pushing up against. So it's not really the way to find the identity. Your identity is a space in the middle, and it's an empty space. And you just drop in to that emptiness. That's your identity. It's this beautiful transmission of love that has absolutely no need to really do anything. It's fine just being what it is. It doesn't need to be recognized. You're not going to find a 9 walking around saying, nobody's recognizing me. They could give a hoot. They're fine. And they don't know who they are, so their spiritual path is to move towards this path that is holy love. And when you're in that space, you transmit that to the rest of the universe. So claiming, these are the practices for claiming yourself. And if you're 9, you're going to say, oh, that's so much energy. But what's going to happen, because see, the 9 has a deadness that's asleep. And these practices want to bring you into your true nature. They don't want you sleeping anymore. So the first thing you're going to feel is, I can't do that. And you're going to crumble about it. It's too much work. Well, what you're going to have to do is take a little step towards it. And you're going to notice that as you take that step forward, energy comes in. Oh my gosh, I do have energy. So that's the surprise for the practice for the 9. So it is a practice of saying yes to the divine heart. Each day, number 1, consider, what is the one essential thing for me to do for me? So there's a way as a 9 that you've been doing everything else but the one thing, or one thing that you really need to do for yourself. And so to pull that one thing out, okay, today I'm going to tackle this one thing, that's all. And it's really essential. It's essential for me. Do you 9s understand what I'm talking about? Okay, number 2, practice stating your opinion, even when it differs from others. See how this is claiming your selfhood. Well, I don't really want to go to that violent movie tonight. Can we find a movie that we both agree on? I have an opinion here that it's not really good for me to go to see a violent movie, and I'll be up all night. You know what happens to me when I watch violence. It just goes right into me. So, number 3, before a vacation or a weekend of leisure, plan ahead for those things you want to do. This helps you remember you, and you'll be less likely to merge with the other's agenda. I watch my son go to Cape Cod every summer with this family, with this big family. He has no desire to go on the beach. His desire would be to play a video game and have a beer. But he goes. and he doesn't take care of himself. He's the shadow, and he supports that whole big family's trip of everything they want to do. So it's like if he could come up and say, I'm really interested in bird watching. I think I'm going to get a pair of binoculars and spend some time bird watching while we're on vacation this year. That's claiming the self. That's making a plan that fits for you. You don't want to hang out laying in the sun all day? Go bird watching for yourself. Here's another one. A journal, and not a big journal, okay? But just journal at the end of the day about how you mattered to yourself and others. How did I matter today to myself? And how did I matter to other people? And notice how it feels to matter. Instead of I don't matter, notice how it feels to matter. Each week, share what is in your heart with another. That means make a date with someone and share not everything that happened this week, but share from your heart what's going on inside. Do you understand the difference? Nines. Okay, so, and don't minimize your heart. Really take up the space to explore it with someone who really can hold the space for your precious, precious heart that nobody's listened to all your life. Okay. Exercise every day to get the heart rate up. I think this is for everybody. When you feel excitement, stay with it and allow it to take its full course. Don't cut it off. Allow that excitement to really have room to be. Let it come fully up and experience the life force that's inside that excitement. And to clear your mind, taking a brisk walk works really good for nines. On the Sabbath, schedule something that moves your body. Do something vigorous, like walking a dog. Oh no, it says walking a dog doesn't count. Avoid numbing yourself out. Basically, that's the key. Do not numb yourself out. However, and you know how you do it. And maybe it's going to a yoga class. Maybe it's doing Tai Chi. I've seen a lot of nines really do well with Tai Chi. With that slow movement where they bring the energy up inside. Okay. Okay, how does that sound, nines? That's your spiritual practice, claiming yourself. Oh, yes. We can't wait to support you in that. Now, we don't have a one in the group, but we have a one wing. Regina has the one wing. So we're going to go through the one anyway. For the one, so critical of themselves, so on themselves about not being perfect, so incredibly hard on themselves when they believe they've made a mistake. And they hide their anger because they try so hard to be good and do everything right. So they're not comfortable with anger. And yet they're an anger type, remember. All the body types are anger types, the 8, the 9, and the 1. So the 1 hides their anger. The 8 is very easy at expressing anger. And the 9 does it through passive-aggressive movements. They know when they're angry, but they don't show it. The 1 doesn't know when they're angry. They have suppressed it. So their path is a conversion from improving to accepting themselves. They're the people that are always doing the workshops to improve, to get it right, to fix the damaged goods. So now instead of improving, it's all about accepting myself. Their habit is a habit of evaluating, comparing, improving. And you can hear that's ego. That's all ego. Accepting is not ego, and that's going to be a really hard thing for a 1. Resentment is a key experience for the 1, and that's going to dissolve as they enter into these threshold practices. So it's a threshold. I'm giving you the practices as threshold. It means that you're stepping away from the ego and you're on the threshold. You're saying yes to the Holy Self through these practices. So here goes for the 1. And if you know a 1 in your life, does anybody know a 1? Okay, so you can understand them a little bit better and you might be able to help them. Delegate some of your tasks and responsibilities. The 1s are very intense, duty-oriented people. They do not have fun. They are not interested in playing. So, number 2, discern what really is your responsibility and what is another's. Because the 1's going to take on everybody's responsibility and over themselves with getting everything done. So with a 1, they need to look at something like yoga or gardening as play instead of work. They go into everything to get it done, to improve it. And so what they have to do before they do yoga is not to do it to improve themselves and to get stronger or more flexible, but to do it because it feels so good. And to do gardening because they just love to get their fingers in the dirt, not because they're trying to finish the whole garden and get it perfect. That's where the 1 overdoes and they end up hurting themselves. They move beyond their body's limits and overdo. So to look for play, is your heart in your work, or does your work seem more like a duty? This is a question for the 1. Find ways to include fun in your work and to engage your heart in your work. And this is just, we had one last night and they, oh my God, they said, I don't even know how to play. That's just an unknown to me. So I said, yeah, but the Holy Spirit does. And that's where we partner up with the Holy Spirit. This is the contemplation for the 1, to recall a moment when you made a mistake and you didn't lose yourself. You see, the 1 becomes the mistake and they start this terrible punishment. They go after themselves. So this is asking the one, when was it that they did not become the mistake? When there was a space between themselves and the mistake. And how did that feel? What did that feel like when they weren't hurting themselves when they saw a mistake? Another one is when you feel the intensity of a serious tone, add a measure of lightheartedness. So you can feel both. Now, this is very tricky because if you're a one and I say, add a measure of lightheartedness, what the one is going to do is they're going to improve themselves. They're going to hear, I need to improve my intensity. And they're going to try and trade intensity for lightheartedness. And of course, they can't do that. So this is given as practice both together so that you can feel you're still intense and just add a little frosting of lightheartedness to it. Don't cancel yourself out. You've been doing that all your life. This is a tricky one. Routinely stop before a task is finished and rest. You're in the middle of cleaning the kitchen, and all of a sudden you hear the Holy Spirit say, I want you to stop now, and I want you to go outside and do something really lovely for yourself. It's time to take a break. And inside, everything in you is going to go, but, I'm addicted to getting this finished. So rest. And so that's an ongoing practice. That's the practice. On the Sabbath, have a day that has no demands. You can stay in bed all day in your pajamas if you like and read a good book. You don't have to get anything done. Nothing. And so that's the main thing. You have no responsibilities. You've given yourself this Sabbath day, and that means there's not going to be any guilt about not doing the dishes, about not calling people back, whatever it is that you find you feel driven to do on the other days. Okay, now that was the body center. Now we're jumping into the heart center. This is the 2, the 3, and the 4. So a heart center person means that the ego is going to use the outer ring of people to get love. It's going to manipulate to get love out of these people. It feels that each one of those types feel that they didn't receive love and that they have to do something to be loved. So this is a doing to get center. These types aren't in their body. And they're outside of their body, especially the 3. Their focus is on for the 2, on taking care outside of themselves so that they can receive or maintain the love that they crave. So the 2 is the helper. Obviously, they're the helper, the healer, the fixer. Come to me, I can heal whatever ails you. And the unwritten contract is, and you will love me back. You will never forget me. You will always count on me. And you will always be one of my fans. This is very hard for an immature two. They wouldn't hear this at all. You have to really have gone through your inner work to be able to hear this, because their whole life has been built on these pleasing relationships to receive the love that they feel they missed. Okay, so I'm going to go more into the two. The spiritual practice of the two is receiving. Notice I'm just giving one word, receiving. And that's your spiritual practice. Receiving can feel needy. And that's the core avoidance of a two. You see, they feel empowered when they can help others. And they can continually check their approval ratings that way. Do you know what I mean? My beloved twos here. You know, there's always a measure. There's always like, what's my rating today? Oh, I have to find somebody to help. So in a healthy relationship, and this is what the two is invited to, there's a mutuality of giving and receiving. And the two resists receiving, and this is the breaking up of relationships for the two. They are so proud they don't receive the help of their mate. And this of course, isn't a very happy place for the partner that so much wants to give and love the two. So it's a one-sided relationship until the two wakes up. Here are the threshold practices. So we're going from helping to receiving. So here's the list. Give yourself permission to withdraw from a group or a commitment when things get too overwhelming. Now, I'm always on Regina's tail on this. You know, give yourself permission at the last minute to say, you know, I'm just not up for that tonight. I've had a really busy day. I know we scheduled this months ago, but I'm sorry, I can't comfortably do this tonight. That's hard for a two. The second practice is to say no to people you value, so that your yes can be an honest yes. You'll understand that if you're a two. Number 3, notice how you alter yourself when seeking approval. So this is a real mind training to feel inside. What am I doing right now? How am I altering my behavior to get something from this person? Consider those with whom you can receive more easily. What is it that makes receiving possible with them? How is it that you really do receive, but there's a place where it's much easier with certain people? And to just notice who those people are in your life, that you're more open to receiving. Each week, give without anyone knowing. secretly give. And how does that feel to you? To do something that nobody sees and nobody knows about. Ask your heart, what do you want to receive? And next to that, what do you need to receive? Those two questions. What do I want to receive? And what do I need to receive? Ask your heart, okay. When your body is about to move to help or assist someone, remain still for 10 seconds and breathe in the discomfort. And observe what arises within you and in that external situation. So you're not jumping to take care of everybody. You're stopping and breathing and feeling what's arising in you. Have a practice of stillness every day that allows for uninterrupted quiet for at least 10 minutes. And on the Sabbath, help yourself to whatever you needed during the week that you neglected. And the two will get to the end of the week or get to the break in the week, and they'll have put off their needs. And so on the Sabbath, that's the time to really take a good look at what they neglected, because they're so good at neglecting themselves to fill the needs of others. That was Mexico. Okay. So those are all the practices, and I want to ask the two twos, do you get how this will be nice for you to have permission to do these practices? And I know the two of you already are doing them. I love Carol has this thing on her email that she's retired now, out playing. So but this is how to move from that helper to the receiver, and that's where your holy self will be found. And the holy self for the two is humility. It's to know that you do have needs. All your life you've been stubborn and proud, described. I'm not judging you, that's the description. And so now it's like you move from all of that to the holy will, which receives. It's in a reciprocity with the holy self all the time. Okay. Now the three, I'll move through quickly. But it's a heart center, and it's good. You might know somebody that's a three, and this will help you understand some things that may bother you about them, or that may, you may wonder about. So the three has to learn the difference between performing and being. These are the actors and the actresses of the world. And this type is actually more lost than the 9 because they don't know it. They're so attached to the role of being efficient, getting recognition, that they spend no time really deepening. It's really hard for them to get into the practices. Their practices are to make time for feeling, make spaces in their life for quietly feeling, not feeling and performing in front of a group. That's not it. And they'll often think they're feeling when they have an audience and they're expressing something, but that's not it. To go by themselves, to be alone, and to feel their feelings without an audience, without grasping for recognition. So they fit into the culture because the culture is so removed from feelings. The culture, the high-powered corporations and so forth, aren't interested in people feeling their feelings. So they need to make time and space. And this is a completely foreign idea to the 3. When the 3 is overdoing, and if you have a 3 in your life, when you see them really pressured and overdoing, what's just below the surface is what needs attention. And they're rushing over it. Their movement is so fast and so furious. These are the workaholics, They're up at 5 and then they're working until, it's like, got to get it all done. Not because they're a 1, but because they're seeking recognition from the world, from everyone. So their practices are I think the big one, feeling is their spiritual practice. And here's the threshold practice: to consider who you most want to impress and why. And when you're with them, make an effort to relax your habit of shape shifting. The 3 shape shifts. They become whatever they think will gain your recognition. They're known as chameleons. Their colors change. Notice your impatience when you feel thwarted from doing or producing something. And practice feeling the impatience and breathing through it, remembering there is enough time. When deciding to act, when doubt or fear arise, don't dismiss it, but see them as teachers. The 3 does not want to feel any doubt or fear at all. They snip it, they cut it off so fast, and they keep this performance level out there in the world. And so these feelings are all in the background. Okay, when deciding to act, ask yourself, am I doing this for recognition? Or because I want to? See, they need to find the I. So at that point, they need to check in with their heart wisdom. Is this really something I really want to do? Or am I just pushing myself to gain some more recognition? From your heart space, consider, who am I when I am not producing? Who am I when I'm not producing? Now, I have a friend that's a 3, and they say, I feel like I'm a failure. And that's what they're avoiding. And that's what they need to feel. Because they have failed deeply in relationship with their holy self. And that will be the one thing that brings them back. Notice when you're rising early or working late. Does your body feel tired? Are you overdoing? Each day, practice moving more slowly and speak more slowly. There's a breath practice for the 3, suggested that they do the practice of bringing the breath all the way down into the belly, because the 3 is surface. They breathe from up here. So bring that breath down. And on Sunday, is the Sabbath, they are asked to spend time alone and to rest from being efficient, to rest from producing, and from performing, so that their feelings can begin to surface. You'll often hear 3 proclaim, I spent some time all by myself. You see, they're so proud of it. And other types, it's like, so what's the big deal about that? But for a 3, being outside of the eyes of the world is really no fun at all, because they can't be recognized. Now, number 4 is the tragic romantic. We had a 4 last night, so it was really beautiful, and I'm going to let each of you have both of the videos so that you can see what the 4 looks like. I mean, they're not all look like this, but this is a beautiful 4, and she was very comfortable with everything that was suggested. So the 4 is addicted to a peak experience. And that peak experience is an experience of a drama, of longing, it's something dramatic. They're dramatic. And their longing is the habit. They feel empty. They don't have what they want. They chose a relationship, and the relationship person was never available. It's tragedy over and over and over again. So their path is the conversion from longing to appreciating. So appreciating is the spiritual practice for the 4. That's really hard for them to appreciate, because they feel whatever they have just doesn't compare with the lives of everyone else. If you have a friend that's a 4, they're always comparing. How come she gets to stay home? I had a friend, how come she gets to stay home at home, and her husband provides all the money, and they have this beautiful house, and I have to work as a therapist for a living? I would hear this from her over and over again. This longing, this envy. And so appreciation feels miles away from them. To ask them to find something that they're grateful for is a real task. And they need a structure in order for this to impact on their lives. They can't just simply decide to appreciate. instead of to long for things. So it has to be a discipline. And it has to be a discipline that isn't superficial. Now, we all know people that do these things like affirmations or so forth, and they're not really involved in them, or gratitude. Oh, I'm grateful for the blue sky today, and I'm grateful that I got out of bed today. It's not that. It's to drop into the longing, to go all the way down in and get down and dirty with that envy. And then at the center, at the darkest place, there's a transition that will take place for the 4, from the despair into joy. So they're very capable of going into these dark places. That's a swimming pool for them. They have to wait there for the joy to arise out of the turmoil, for contentment to begin to take over. And then they're going to have gratitude, not just for the easy, fun parts of life. It's a new gratitude that will arise in the 4. And it's a gratitude of being like everyone else. You see, what folds up is this envy. Oh, I'm not special. I'm not lacking. Right here, I'm ordinary. I'm just like everyone else. Holy origins. In that ordinariness comes the most extraordinary ordinary person. It's hard to describe it, but these are the artists of the world. These are the poets. These are the musicians, the dancers, the flamboyant expressions that are so unique and different. And so they have to give that up. They have to give up that presentation to the world and come home and be content with who they are. And that's where God is. So here's the threshold practice to notice when your mind goes into a comparing state. Bring something to mind for which you are grateful. So when you notice your mind is going into hell with a handbasket, call yourself back. As each day ends, journal the things and people in your day for which you are grateful. Notice stories that focus on abandonment. The 4 feels this deeply. And notice those stories create melancholy moods. And at that point, practice shifting your focus of attention when these arise. To be with a 4 can be very boring because they are so always in a longing episode, and they always don't have what they need, and there's always a tragedy that's just happened. Regina and I work with one person that's a 4, and it's always about the relationship lost. And practice sensing and feeling a light-hearted heart. Here again. When the 1 is in stress, they move to the 4. When a 1 is in a stressful place, they can almost look like a 4. They get so dramatic and so bent out of shape. So that's where the lightheartedness comes in. When sadness is ruling your mind and heart, ask, what is behind my sadness? And feel and continue the process of looking behind until you get to an authentic emotion. Now the 4 has lots of feelings. So when you're with a 4, they're feeling, but they're not in an authentic emotion. And so if you're with them, you want to help them really get authentic. Okay, when you find yourself wandering the dark side of the moon, try playing some lower chakra music and moving to it. Gabriel Roth, drum beating, tribal music. So you start to move the lower centers. And when you discover yourself in the loop of an inner story, find a symbol or object of beauty to focus on. So in this case, you use your eyes and your vision to bring you to the present moment. So I was saying last night, if you're a 4, you can all of a sudden start to focus on the bird sounds or the wind in the trees or the water dripping in the faucet or the foghorn in the distance. And that will drop you into the present moment. It's a great, great pull-out practice for the 4. And I want to mention here, we have a very famous 4 who is St. John of the Cross. And if you read his beautiful poetry and writings, he really shows how to go all the way into the dark night of the soul and find the beloved. And that's what's so beautiful about his poetry, is he is guided on that, in that particular way, to go into all the way into the dark night. And so that's for the path of the 4. Sabbath is to be given to creativity. Period. If you're a writer, write. If you're a poet, do poetry. If you're a painter, paint. Spend the day at the Van Gogh Museum. It's your day to be in your creative center. So how's everybody? That was an hour. Are you hanging in with me? Are you finding people in your life who are these types and you're understanding a little bit more about them? Now for the head center. So we have 3 people. We have 2 5s and 1 6. The first thing to say about the head center is they do not live in their bodies. Very important. They live outside the body. They live in their head. There's like they're the intellectual, and they do all their processing up here. Well, why? Because it's not safe to be down here. This is very unsafe territory for the 5, the 6, and the 7. Too many feelings here. Scary, unpredictable. And what you want to remember about the head type is their issue is security. If they're fearful, they're always striving for safety, to feel safe. And this is how, when we went over the ego types, each, the 5, the 6, and the 7, logically respond systematically to these situations in the world. And these types have a very active imagination. Their inner world is much different than the rest of ours. And they're the type that is much more able to think in gray zones. They really can tolerate. They don't know black and white. They're in the middle types when they're exploring something. Black and white thinking is foreign. So we're going to go first to the 5. So we want to remember that the 5 feels safe by detaching, right? They detach. They unhook, and they hold on to any and every resource they can. The 5 loves information. And we had a 5 in the other group, and that was where he fell down all the time, because he always, every time he did a spiritual practice, he would say, but there's got to be more. I'm reading a new book. You know, there was always this thirst to fill up because they feel like they don't have enough. They're empty inside. And so there's a feeling, if I can fill up with enough resources and enough information, that's the ego's plan for them anyway, and to maintain their privacy and autonomy. So their spiritual practice is, guess what the opposite of detaching is? Engaging. Engaging. Wow, that just sends a shiver of dread through, because that doesn't feel safe. The 5 has to turn their attention inward in order to notice when they're detaching from an experience. So that's their mindfulness is, you know, right now, I have just, if I go inside, I can feel I've removed myself from what's going on here. And that's all. Just pay attention how you do it, and notice that this is a pattern that you feel is going to protect you. And it's also a way to maintain independence and privacy. When you're with a 5, you'll notice that you already know, don't pull them in. Don't call them out. They let you know right away by their posture. You know, they do not engage. They do not want to engage. And they give that off. And people respect that, and they allow them to stay outside the group for the most part. And it's fine, you know, because you don't want to force any type to do something that they're not ready to do. And with a 5 in particular, they have a very gentle inside. It's fragile. It's the feeling is very fragile and vulnerable. Am I right with the 5? That for somebody to force you out is really, it's abusive. It's on the edge of being abused. So to remember that with your 5 friends, let them do it in their time, and let them take the step that they need to take that's right for them. So the thing that happens for the 5 is they may learn a lot by sitting outside the group, but they experience very little. And that's the conundrum with that position. They're like the ghost that's taking it all in, but they're not experiencing. Remember, this is a head type. So they've cut off from the experience. So back to the practice, engaging is my practice, not detaching. And the threshold practices is in order to say yes to your divine heart is number 1, say yes to 3 of the next 5 invitations or requests you receive. Have you seen The Yes Man? If you haven't seen The Yes Man, that's another practice. You have to watch The Yes Man. It's so funny. So saying yes to 3 of the next 5 invitations. Number 2, offer appreciation each day to 2 people. Now, I'm going to give you an example because you're going to be like the one that says, I have no idea what that means. I do not know how to play. But let's just say you have an experience with a person, let's just say in a group. And after the group, you go over to that person and you say, you know, what you shared really helped me to understand something about myself that I didn't understand before. And I really appreciate that sharing that you did. So it's going to include a feeling sense. The appreciation is going to include you. Not I appreciate the way you write. No, I appreciate this about you because it gave me something. So that would be the interaction. It's like that. Number 3, notice when you internally detach from a situation and ask why. Why did I just check out? And then when you're ready, try to re-engage. Next, initiate sharing something about yourself with others at least twice a week. Now, sharing something about yourself is something really about yourself. Something that stretches you from the inside. It's not reporting what you ate for breakfast. It's not reporting a new book that you got. It's reporting from the inside something that's a bit challenging, that has some feeling to it. That's where the stretch will be. Marcy, because I've seen you do this in group, and it's so beautiful when you go into this place, and everybody in the group gets turned on and lit up. It's such a powerful expression when a 5 comes. I haven't seen you do it, Allison, but you probably do it too. When a 5 comes from that place, so much light is released. It's so beautiful. Okay. Remember time when you were surprised by the generous nurturing of another. Somebody actually, you let them nurture you, and how that actually feels. How does it feel to be nurtured? How did it feel to have your hair brushed by that 3-year-old? I think that's one of my favorite things. Do you know what I mean? how safe it is. And you got a little 3-year-old girl that just wants to comb and brush your hair, and she's so busy with her little fingers, and everything in you opens because they are so safe and so loving. So pick an experience like that where you really could experience what happens in my body when I allow nurturing to happen. And the second part is, what made that possible? I put a 3-year-old in there, but there are many experiences that you have that made it possible for you to experience nurturing. And the next one is, notice how little space you take up physically, and experiment with taking up more space. Can you imagine experimenting with taking up more space? It doesn't mean to push people to the side. It means to begin to engage. All of this is about engaging, having a say, sharing from your insides out. And last, it's important to move your energy from your head into your body every day, to find some practice. Yoga is a really good practice for the head types because you can enter into the body, especially if you're doing the mountain pose and the tree pose and the warrior pose. You can start to feel how solid and good it feels to be, and how safe it feels to be in the body when you're bringing yourself down and breathing. On the Sabbath, do whatever you can to enliven the body senses. So you're out there in the head, and you want to come in. I'm an 8, so I have a 5, a strong 5 place in me. I understand the 5. I will switch and live in the 5. And if somebody gets too rambunctious and wants to organize some playful movement, I will leave. I immediately will remove myself because I feel so threatened by anybody that wants to call out bodily movement. It's not safe for a 5. They're going to back away. They don't want to be exposed. They'll find some other activity to do. Oh, I think I'll go in and in the kitchen and peel tomatoes. That's safe. Or they might get out on the dance floor and really surprise themselves and really get down and dirty. And that's healthy for a 5. That's a really healthy place to go. So I want to ask the 2 5s if there's any questions that you feel you have before I move on. Or do you understand these practices?
I'll just share that the one that I put a star by that I guess I didn't realize was, and made me feel very emotional, was when you said, remember what it felt like to have felt nurtured. For some reason, that one, it just leapt out at me. I don't really know why, but that one really is a new one for me today that really jumped out at me. And yet I understand it because I don't know. That's something I need to spend some time with.
And what you're doing right now is engaging. And I'm just getting goosebumps all over. It's so beautiful. what you just did is you engaged and shared yourself with the whole group. And it's like you're in your holy self when you're doing this. So,
Yeah. I also understand, Judith, what you said about giving 5 the time for that to happen, that they have to take their own steps and it might not look like anything is happening, but it's a process of, and I don't know how you said it, but that was very,
well, you don't want to force the 5 because there's a gentle, fragile self there, and that needs to be respected as they come forward.
yeah.
It's very childlike. It's very beautiful. It's a flower in full bloom. And as a flower blooms, it begins opening from the buds slowly. It doesn't just wham, open like a lily in one day. So it's got that process that's exquisite.
Thank you.
Okay, on to 6 for Mickey. And I'm sure we all know 6s and 5s. I mean, so the 6, the barrier to the 6 is that they're asking an audience of authority figures outside where to go, what to do. They're looking outside themselves, and so trust. They need to come to trust. That's their spiritual practice, to trust their inner authority. And their inner authority is not in the head. You might want to underline that. The inner authority is in the heart of the 6. And like all head types, they're going to look up in the head for their authority. Well, so-and-so did it this way, and whoosy whatsis told me I should do this, and whatchamajigger said this is the diet for me, and blah, blah, blah. So for the 6, they come into their power when they finally land in the authority of the heart center. This is very beautiful. And that's the ability to trust themselves. Because trust is the biggest issue for the 6. To have the courage to step into uncertainty, to move through doubting and fearful times. The distrust in the 6 keeps the mind and the heart separate. That's what splits them in themselves. That's the split in themselves. So they need to learn how to shift their attention from the external world of authority to the internal center. So to have the courage to look within. And when they do that, those feelings of helplessness will shift into a posture of self-reliance. Now it's a big win. The threshold practices. So what we're going to see is how to take a 6 from the outer, the head, the focus on the world authorities, to the heart, the heart center. 1, notice when worst case thinking is in operation. Worst case scenario, and inquire how it's appropriate. How is that appropriate? How is that worst case thinking appropriate right now? What's it doing? Become aware when you're overthinking or overinterpreting a situation. And take a course of action, however small, to relax that thinking energy. Take a course of action, however small. Take one step towards it, even if you're uncertain. Check in with your own wisdom when you notice yourself seeking advice or the opinion of another. Ask, what would I do first? Well, before you go out to ask somebody else, your first question is, what would I do? So that you know what you would do. You're not going to be leaving yourself then. And then you can ask, you can do your polling of everybody else and see what everybody else is saying. Spend some time each day in touch with feelings. The feelings you shut down in order to feel safe. The 6 suppresses their fear feelings. They don't even know sometimes when they're anxious. Who, me? They're out working out at the gym, building muscles. You know, this is a habit. This is a way of compensating and avoiding the feelings. So this is a really important. You cannot get into your heart unless you feel your feelings. Plan time alone every day when you can offer a heartfelt thanks to those in your life who love you and who you trust. Can you feel how this is bringing the 6 into their heart when they send out an email and they say, I feel this really tender love for you, and I really want to express it to you today. Period. And it has to have the feeling with it. It cannot be a heart at the end of a letter. It has to engage. Again, we're pulling the engagement from the head center into the heart center. Notice where you feel safe and secure in your body. And when you're feeling anxious, when you're noticing that anxiousness, try and shift your attention to the places in your body where you feel calm and secure. And then exercise in order to bring the energy lower into your body. So you're going to be doing energy work that brings you down out of the head into the body. And on the Sabbath, you're going to lessen your need for evidence. The 6 is interested in collecting evidence. Let go of needing any evidence on the Sabbath. And create a sacred space for yourself with icons or things that remind you of God's abiding presence in your life. Pray in the way that's most comfortable for you. So there are some beautiful prayers and beautiful ways of praying. Um, Sufi turning is a beautiful body prayer. Um, there are some yoga prayers honoring the sun when you wake up in the morning. Maybe it's through music. You find your own heart centered way of praying. Okay? And now, last but not least, is the 7. This is the last of the head types. And this type is very afraid of feeling pain in the body. Their experience is emptying. That's their spiritual practice. They fear their fear. They manage to escape feeling their feelings of fear and anxiety by planning the next exciting adventure. They fill the mind with imaginative plans, with new experiences, and they've always got something new up their sleeve. Very hard for a 7 to relax into emptiness, to experience their sadness, and to allow their heart's voice to speak. They're a head type, they're up here. So again, the spiritual practice is emptying, and the process requires the image of God to be one of love and trust. You can't empty if in a wait to be filled, unless you understand that God, the God you're moving towards, is the God of love. So their practices are, does everybody know a 7? Do you all have a 7? Do you want me to share with you who's a big 7 in our life? Daniel, our beautiful brother Daniel. He's a raving 7. So it's nice when you know somebody, so you get to see and you go, oh, that's why he did the meditation the way he did, with the joystick and the velvet chairs and everything. And oh, that's why he's always got a new plan for us. Very charming people. So it says, first of all, see the practices that are going to be given to you as guides to wholeness rather than restrictions, because the 7 is going to feel restricted. You're going to feel bound up. So when you find yourself in a planning mode, ask, is my planning connected or separate from what is occurring right now? See, planning is the avoidance. Each day, practice doing one thing at a time and complete a task before going on to the next one. They will be juggling all these balls in the air at one time. Try eliminating a third of the balls you have in the air as you multitask. Don't fill the time with other balls. Notice how you respond. Create empty space in your calendar. For example, have a weekend with no plans, and notice how you feel when the weekend is drawing near. When you notice yourself unusually adventurous, Take time to be with your heart to see if some sadness needs a voice. When you experience grief or sadness, allow yourself time with it. When you feel ready to move on, stay with the sadness 2 more minutes. Recall when a commitment or boundary offered you deep joy. Stay with the memory and the feeling. I'm going to insert this here. I actually helped a woman who was right at the edge of awakening. And I didn't do it. I was being a medium at the time, and she was jumping all over the place in her imagination. It was like all of a sudden she saw that she was in the ocean and everything was opening up, and there were all these beautiful fish. And I said, Linda, I said, I want you to come back and be in the womb before this opens. Just come back and stay right there before you can see anything. And just be there. And she said, but I want the whole enchilada. And I said, I know you do. Stay here. Just stay here. And in that moment, she had a full-blown Kundalini experience that shot all the way through her. It was just by holding her in the emptiness. At that point, it was the womb opening into the ocean. It was just in that moment of holding her there that the whole thing exploded. The Kundalini just, man. And it was so amazing for me to be present as a midwife. And of course, I had no idea. I was just, one of the things I do is just channeling, and relaxed and channeling. Didn't even know I was channeling. So that gives you an idea of what that emptiness is. It's a space that isn't filled up with joysticks and velvet chairs and people coming and going in and off the stage. It's a very simple holding tank, like a birth canal, that's empty. And if you remember with the 9, we went back to that emptiness too. And for the 9, that emptiness is the sacred space of union. That's where it all happens. Okay. Slow down and pace your activity. Bring your body's energy to your midsection. Breathe in the belly and narrow your focus. Spend time each day with a somatic meditation. Remember, we've got a head type, they're up here. So the somatic is the body meditation, some kind of somatic meditation. And don't research and investigate. Just follow the sensations. And a beautiful practice would be the Feldenkrais practice. I don't know if you were familiar with Feldenkrais, but that would be exactly what is being talked about here for a 7. And on the Sabbath, they are not to spend any time in the past or the future. They are to be in the great I am. No multitasking. They're only to experience one thing and to notice if boredom surfaces. And then to try staying with the feeling of boredom and notice where it is in the body. And ask yourself, what is boring me? And see what comes up until it dissipates. Thirsty. So this is your check-in time. How do you all feel? Do you feel like you did get the right Enneagram type when I read the process of the spiritual process? Yeah. Lynn, I want to check in with you because you didn't know where you were.
Oh, yeah, I know. No, I think 9 certainly resonates with me. And the passive aggressive, the not knowing what I want to do, but really kind of knowing what I want to do, but not saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Stating my opinion, even when it's different than others, is like excruciatingly hard for me. Yeah. But that's my homework.
This is your homework. This is the
Yeah.
homework you will do with the Holy Spirit.
Right. Yes.
You're not alone. This process is to be taken as your spiritual practice with the Holy Spirit to show you. So you have a way now to get from the ego's holding tank where you've been stuck
Yeah.
and start that movement, which is very reasonable. It's not 2 hours a day of sitting on a meditation cushion, and it's effective. It's like you can feel you'll burn up some stuff when you're doing these practices.
Yeah.
You're going to be getting somewhere, and you're going to be bringing your energy up
Right. Yes.
from that dead space, that numbed out space where you gave up who you were, where you didn't think you were worthwhile.
Yeah. I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
Both you and Gabriella. Gabriella, do you want to comment at all here on what's happened for you by being in the group that we're in, and how some things were very difficult in the beginning as a 9?
It's been very difficult for me to share, to express feelings or, well, even to speak up for myself. And I realize it's getting easier and easier to share. It's like I have to jump over a hurdle to do it and to express my feelings and not to hide. Well, this is what was the other one. Share with someone what's going on inside your heart. So that's not very easy for me.
No.
So I have to have really trust in that person when I open my heart and share feelings, because I used to share it with my mother, and I know when you as a teenager, when you fall in love for the very first time and it doesn't turn out the way you want it to be, and you come home, crying, and your mother says, it's like, oh, that's why you're crying. What are you crying for? So that's not so hard on someone. And that's, I think, when I started, not to share feelings anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I just tried to solve the problems or myself. I didn't talk anymore about feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in my family, nobody talked about feelings at all.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very hard on me.
And
I had to laugh when you mentioned, on Sabbath, you should do the slow motion Tai Chi. I have been practicing Qigong for years.
Qigong.
I am actually a Qigong trainer, so I can't do it with children and with adults. So that was something when Regina looked at me and we both had to laugh.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I have been neglecting this for the last 2 years or so.
Mm.
So this is like a kick in the ass. So just start doing it again, or going out for a brisk walk, just to clear my mind. So I prefer being as a 9 as a couch potato, And what's really I can talk about it now. I can admit it, that I am a 9. I would have never admitted it. It's like I talked to Regina last week and I said, you know what? I really, on Wednesday, I just numbed out. I just did it and I talked to you about it, and she said, well, everything's okay. And I can speak about it now.
Mm.
I tried to hide it.
Mm.
Didn't even want to admit it to myself that I am a 9 or that I do it.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of a voice from someone who we did this when I first began the group. I did just a brief thing in the Enneagram, and so you've been working with it. I want to unmute everybody, but I notice I can't. Would you all unmute yourself so that everybody can share? And let's just all share whatever's coming up about this. Siri just said, I'm not sure I understand. So
Well,
anything you want to share during these last 10 minutes, I want to.
I can share something.
Yeah.
If I hadn't been sure that I was a 5 when you talked about the ego, I am absolutely sure when you tell me what homework exercises I have to do, because I just want to throw it away and run away and hide. I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah.
Not the stuff that involves me working and engaging with people. It's what I've spent my entire life avoiding.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really have. At work, it reminds me of these one-on-one appraisals when you're always told you have to be more engaging with people. And, it's just, I wish I could be anything but a 5. I'm so relieved to hear other people saying how difficult their homework is for them, because I just felt that nobody's homework is difficult except number 5. Now I see that's just because that's what I am.
Yeah. Yeah. This is specific to your ego type.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to burn it up. Yeah. It's the converting. Yeah. Thank you.
I did have one question on the first thing where it says say yes to 3 of the next 5 invitations or requests. Is that like every day you have to do that, or every week, or every month? How many requests am I going to have to fulfill? I already feel like overburdened at the idea of just one. So,
Watch The Yes Man, honestly. It'll crack you up.
Is it a film?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can get it easily.
Right. Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah, I think you just have to, from this moment on, the next 5 invitations you get, 3, try and say yes to 3 of them.
Okay. I just hope they're good ones.
That gives you 2 no's. The Holy Spirit is in charge. I mean, we have all entered into a very sacred space and invited the Holy Spirit, and I was guided to offer this to those that were interested. So remember this: you have a traveling companion, and it's every day ask for help. It's not about saying yes to 3, but ask the Holy Spirit. I need help to say yes to this invitation.
Well, I think that I can take that together with the TTC teaching that you should ask Holy Spirit about everything.
Yes.
So that will be easier for me to remember to do that.
Yeah.
With the invitations, and I haven't done it in the past. So thank you.
It's much easier. I mean, the thing I liked is that we all now have a realistic spiritual practice to get to the Holy Self. We have a beginning practice, and we know where we're going if we want to do it. Any other questions or comments or criticisms?
I'll just speak up briefly. I'm excited about engaging. I've been doing more and more of saying yes, but where I don't engage, for example, is almost every day on my short list of things to do is to post something on Facebook in Miracles Boot Camp, and I never get around to it. So I don't engage. And yeah, so it's something I'm aware of, but I don't follow through on it. I always find some reason. I don't even think I do. I just put it out of my mind then, and so I know that's where the juice is to do more engaging, because I have been doing more, and there's nothing but good stuff on the other side. And this class has really helped me to nail it to being a 5 and to really accept myself as being a 5, which I didn't the first time around. I wanted to just decide I didn't know what I was, I guess, was part of my avoidance. But I would have to say in the past week, especially, I've had a lot of grief coming up about how this stamp of being a 5 has really limited me, and limited love. And so I feel like I'm honestly looking at that and accepting myself around that, but allowing the grief that this whole identity amounted to, So I feel a lot of release and I feel like, Carol will know about this. We were in a book club together, and one of the things that was talked about was giving yourself permission slips. And so I've given myself a permission slip to really screw things up. So if I'm talking in a group and I don't say things completely or the right way or whatever, it's like, that's okay, because all I want to do is engage. I just want to participate. I'm ready to move out. So I don't care about what it looks like anymore. It's like, give yourself a permission to F it up, but just do it. And for me, it's just taking that step, that action, and keep going. And so I'm feeling some real excitement about that inside. Yeah.
Thanks, Marcy.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Hey, Carol.
Marcy has a beautiful light that just comes. She doesn't even have to say anything, and it just shines out. She really does. For this class, I just felt strongly too, like and I don't know how it plays in, but like number 1, it seems like, and I don't know how the wings work and all that. I don't know what all that means, but besides being a 2, it seems like when you were talking about the 1, I'm going, oh, for goodness sakes, that's me, that's me, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the wing.
Oh.
That's the wing. So at that point, you want to see which is stronger. Which is the stronger, the 1 or the 2?
At any given time, or as a whole?
It's the way I find it, because I'm between an 8 and a 9, is and this is like, I'm a gut center. That's true, but I don't numb out.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to numb out, but that isn't my go-to. And I'm in action. My body goes right into action. So you go and look at that. What I told you is, are you always checking to see how your supply is? In the world, that was the one thing I said. The 2 always knows, or is always working with the feedback. The two is centered on the outer world. Now, Regina, you have the one wing. So do you want to share a little bit how you know you're a two with a one wing?
Yeah, I think mostly when you said about if somebody's calling or somebody needs help or something, I'm very fast going there. Also, that's where I know it's the two, is wanting to help and everybody, just not me. Not for myself. So that's where I.
But how do you know you have a one wing?
I don't know right now. I cannot say.
Okay. Well, it's your concern about being prepared and doing things right.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
It's when you're going to lead a group or so forth, you always had to get prepared for the group, or
Yeah.
and to make a mistake is really hard for you to think that you hadn't make a mistake, because that would mean you're bad. And the one is between the good and the bad.
Yeah, that's right. Also speaking up in a group, as in a, not the one I have here, but like TTC or so, to speak up or say something, to not have the right words, and I always put it into the language. I can understand everything, but not say everything. So things like that. Yeah.
And the other thing, Carol, thank you, Regina, would be to look at a three wing and to see, are you invested in a performance? Are you invested in doing things to be recognized in the world? So you'd either be a one or a three, in other words.
Oh, okay. It doesn't feel, at this point, it doesn't feel like a 3, but it feels strong like a 1.
Okay. Okay.
At this point of knowledge.
Your love of play would make me think that you're not a one.
That love of play is developed. It was a decision. It was a recognition of not knowing how to play. So that was a decision and is developing.
Okay, so let's go to the center. The center of the one is anger. The center of the two is pride. The one suppresses anger in order to maintain this good girl image. The two avoids needing anyone in order to avoid receiving and being needy.
It's
in a relationship, it would show up. When you get close to somebody, that's how you avoid being loved. Either by being a nitpicking one that always has to improve herself or improve everybody around her, or by being this very proud two that has to always be doing everything for everybody. It allows somebody to do something for themselves.
The two is stronger, I think.
Yeah, they're not pretty. The ego is never pretty.
Yeah.
But as you could see, we have to go all the way down in order to get free. And this is what we did. We went all the way down into the bottom of the barrel to look at the ugly, because the ego is ugly. The way it manipulates and deceives and uses is ugly. But until you see that part, you can't really go out. It's like you go down to come out. So that's the power of doing this that I wanted to extend to you all. And I look forward to hearing from you. And if I do anything more with the Enneagram, I'll shoot you an email.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judith.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
You're all so beautiful and lovable, you know. Ugh. And if you decide you want to work more on something, just we can do that too. I didn't say that in the other group, but okay, everybody. I have to head on into Santa Fe for an eye appointment. So
Okay.
Thank you. Bye, all.
Bye bye. Have a nice week.
Bye.